This is a historic breakthrough. The world is giving a standing ovation. A massive knockout for Russia is being prepared. Super powerful weapons for the armed forces of Ukraine. Our people are giving a masterclass. Putin is being smoked out of his bunker. Shock. A second front is opening. China wants to take a bite out of Crimea. All of this in our episode of Hellpoint. This weapon will finally wipe out the enemy. Italy is bursting into the fight. A column of steel-armored vehicles is heading to Ukraine. The Ukrainian armed forces at its helm are already preparing for large-scale special operations right under the enemy's nose. The Russians are whining and trying to find flaws in the fierce beasts that will soon grind them down in a heated battle. This is going to be epic. More details about the weaponry that will turn everything upside down are coming up next.
An unprecedented aid package for Ukraine from Rome. As it has become known, Italy has already prepared its 11th military support package for official Kyiv. According to the Western press, under this package, Ukraine will likely receive the Italian tracked version of the M113 armored personnel carriers.
It is expected that a reserve of tracked tanks for troop transport will be placed inside. These are M113 tanks designed to house an equipped infantry squad and provide close-range fire support to the troops.
It is worth noting that this weapon is already at the front. It is not new for the armed forces of Ukraine. For more than a year, similar American equipment has been participating in the fighting in Donbass,
2.0 horsepower Detroit, American refined 2-stroke diesel, turbo diesel.
As for the Italian version of the M113 itself, in 2024 the Camellino appeared in service with the National Police. And the Apennine modification, which is NATO standard weaponry, unlike the earlier M113 modifications provided by allies, received additional side armor, which significantly improved the vehicle's characteristics.
This is already the 11th comprehensive package of significant military aid being provided to Kyiv. The ongoing war unfortunately continues to persist. A ceasefire is still just a mirage for now.
Meanwhile, as soon as Russian propaganda learned about the upcoming delivery of Italian armored vehicles to Ukraine, they began to harshly criticize the American M113 in every possible way. This is despite the fact that the Ukrainian armed forces have not captured a single such vehicle. The occupiers have started to completely trash Western equipment. And here are the scientific facts. As Ukrainian defenders report, the American armored vehicles suffer from a completely different issue. On the contrary, for the Ukrainian armed forces, they are even too fast and maneuverable.
It's the rollers that require constant maintenance. We're driving at high speed, the track bounces, it splashes the roller, the rubber gets torn off completely. That's what happens, it splashes the roller, and that's it.
And even though the American vehicle dates back to the 1950s, its constant and thorough modernization gives it an edge over Russian APCs. Even the occupiers themselves are forced to admit this in their own propaganda videos.
Basically, it's pretty much the same as on our vehicles. But it's important to note that to disembark quickly, this whole ramp opens up. It just drops down. Yes, of course, this means that the troops can disembark much faster, and accordingly, this, let's say, eliminates. The time it takes for the troops to disembark is important.
Another advantage is that the structural aluminum can withstand small fragments. You can even see here that one fragment got stuck. Aluminum.
But that's far from everything the American M113 can use to surprise the enemy. What especially terrifies Russian army soldiers is the armored vehicle's automatic fire control system. With its help, eliminating the enemy becomes like playing a video game on the easiest difficulty setting.
Launch. Just one button. The drive of the module itself is activated, then the camera, and then you adjust the fire accordingly. There are 3 firing modes: single shots, short bursts, from 2 to 7 rounds.
The much-praised Russian army of Putin, with its deeply outdated APCs, could only dream of something like this.
It aims and tracks the target itself. It tracks the target on its own, even if the vehicle is stationary.
There is an automatic target acquisition system.
And according to Western media reports, Italy will deliver as many as 400 of these vehicles to Ukraine. This could significantly affect the balance of power on the current front line. And it definitely won't give the occupiers a chance to successfully carry out the announced full-scale summer offensive.
Moscow is on the edge. Unknown drones reached the Russian capital and caused quite a stir. Putin is in shock, and the drones hit a secret location. The video has already appeared online. The occupiers are whining that the war is taking its toll. Strikes against the enemy are gaining momentum. You'll hear all the details about our lightning maneuvers on enemy territory right now.
Monday morning in the Moscow region started not with coffee, but with the sound of drones. "70 kilometers from the Russian capital, residents of the city of Krasnozavodsk suddenly remembered that the war is closer than they'd like. In the sky, there was a rumble, panic erupted in local chats, and at the local factory a series of explosions and plumes of smoke appeared.
So, to be classic,
In the footage, you can see the drones were flying low and hit their target precisely. According to Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation at the National Security and Defense Council, the strikes were not accidental.
In Russia's Moscow region, the Krasnozavodsk chemical plant was attacked. They produce explosives, gunpowder, and components for ammunition and missile weaponry there. This is a link in the technological chain that supplies the Russian army with artillery shells for MLRS and ballistic missiles.
Local residents heard about 7 explosions. However, the Russian Ministry of Defense reported as usual. All targets were destroyed, no hits. Meanwhile, the local governor, Andrei Vorok, is avoiding comments regarding the attack on the facility. But he is providing detailed reports about another incident: the fall of unidentified drones in the neighboring Sergeyevo-Posadsky district.
2 people were injured. A 60-year-old man suffered a closed head injury. 3 teeth were knocked out. A 40-year-old man sustained an open neck wound and a chest contusion. Both were taken to the Sergeyevo-Posad hospital. Medical staff are providing assistance. The condition of the injured is of moderate severity. There is no threat to their lives.
Playing the silent game is yet another admission of defeat by the local air defense. The publication Defense Express analyzed the video from the scene. Journalists claim these UAVs have already successfully breached the dense air defense ring around Moscow, the so-called concrete belt, more than once.
The FP-1 not only broke through to the target located north of Moscow. In the footage, there is no sign or sound of air defense systems in operation. Moreover, this is not the first attack by this drone on the area. Because on the night of the 4th of July, these same Ukrainian long-range drones attacked the Research Institute of Applied Chemistry in the city of Sergeyev, Posad, which is only 12 kilometers from Krasnozavodsk.
So, as always, Russia reports on the effective operation of the air defense systems. But the facts tell a different story. Drones reaching their targets more and more often are striking right at the heart of the enemy's military infrastructure. Yurikutsi, details. Inter-Television Channel, Marathon, United News.
Urgent escalation. Putin's army is advancing on Armenia. Tension beyond the limit. Columns of military equipment are already near the border, and the Kremlin is throwing everything it could gather into the fight. Relations between the countries are on the verge of breaking. A second front is becoming a reality. Right now, urgent statements are being made. Don't miss the main thing.
Against the backdrop of escalating tensions with Azerbaijan, the Russian Federation is increasing its military presence in Armenia. This was stated by the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine.
The main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine has published a telegram from the acting chief of staff of the Southern Military District of the Russian Armed Forces, Major General Zimskov. The document contains an order from the commander of the troops of the Southern Military District of the Russian Armed Forces. This concerns the buildup of Russian military forces through the so-called reinforcement of the Russian military base in the city of Gyumri, Armenia.
The deployment of Russian troops in Armenia is part of the Kremlin's comprehensive strategy aimed at destabilizing the global security situation. The main intelligence directorate is confident that Moscow is accelerating the process of staffing its base to increase military and political pressure on the countries of the South Caucasus. The personnel are being reinforced with servicemen from the Rostov and Volgograd regions, as well as from the annexed Crimea.
The command of the military unit Paliva Post 0 to 4, 43.6, in the period from May 13 to the 11th of June 2025, to carry out the selection of personnel in the units and military formations of the military district, for the subsequent signing of initial contracts and deployment to the military base for further military service.
The document submitted by Ukrainian intelligence also mentions the reinforcement of the 8th, 18th, 49th and 58th Combined Arms Armies of the Southern Military District of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation. It is possible that the Russian Federation wants to increase the size of its military contingent to put pressure on Baku as well as Yerevan, because right now Russia's relations with Armenia and Azerbaijan are not
in the absolute best possible shape and condition. This is specifically for the Public Union of the Russian Federation, a significant and influential organization. Furthermore, this includes a crucial military base and a substantial air group strategically located in Erebuni could be used against Armenia itself if Moscow doesn't like something there. In other words, if Armenia suddenly pulls out, as is being discussed now, from the sphere of influence of the Russian Federation, then perhaps Putin could use them. That's why this is a dangerous situation.
The base in Gyumri was established in 1995 according to the current agreement between Yerevan and Moscow. It will operate until 2044. The 102nd Russian military base is located in Gyumri, the largest military facility of the occupiers in the South Caucasus. The personnel numbers about 5,000 people. 2,500 are Russians and 2,000 are Armenians. The base is equipped with S-300 surface-to-air missile systems and 18 MiG-29 fighter jets.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
So it's quite a formidable strike force that could, for example, seize the airport in Yerevan and secure the landing of the main Russian forces. The Russian army attempted a similar seizure at the Hostomel airfield near Kyiv in February 2022. The Armenian Ministry of Foreign Affairs also commented on the intelligence statement regarding Russia's increased military presence in the country. They stated that their position is principled and the territory of Armenia cannot be used by third countries.
The Republic of Armenia reaffirms its principled position that the territory of the Republic of Armenia cannot be used by third countries for conducting military actions against any of the neighboring states. Ani Badalyan, spokesperson for the Armenian Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
The military base in Gyumri is not the only lever of military political pressure on the countries of the South Caucasus. The Russian outpost in Armenia can be compared to the Black Sea Fleet base in Sevastopol. It was precisely thanks to Russian forces in Ukrainian Crimea that the occupation of the peninsula took place in 2014. And Armenia should take this lesson into account to avoid repeating the same mistakes.
The invasion of fiber optic drones. The enemy is stretching its web to the front line. Near Toretsk, they attack in waves, trying to lure our forces into a trap. But the Ukrainian armed forces respond harshly. Our combat birds strike right on target, like a surgeon's scalpel. Now we are playing by their rules. How do drones of the new era work? And why are they changing the nature of war? Watch right now.
Destroyed houses, burned out cars. This is the road of death in the Sumy region. It was filmed by soldiers of the 67th Brigade while they were defending Kurkina.
Let's just say we knew there was a pile of burned out vehicles, and as you drove past them, you thought, let it not be us next.
The Russians attacked with drones along the fiber optic line and cut it within a month. Our main supply route was Yunakivka-Sudzha.
Before the fiber optic line appeared, we were stationed 4 to 5 kilometers away, and that suited us. No one bothered us. No one bothered us is relative, no one really bothered us. It was only 3 of our positions that the fiber optic line took out.
In the spring, the Russians began to cut off the main routes in Donetsk region with similar drones. They targeted the road to Pokrovsk and made our logistics more difficult. Later, the fiber optic line started being detected 20 to 25 kilometers from the front line.
It's all about fiber optics, because it's effective. It's effective more so. The main thing before the battle is to cut off the enemy's logistics, so that they can't get ammo delivered on time, bullets, whatever in the basics. If the infantry doesn't eat or drink, then they won't fight.
Now, because of the abundance of fiber optics, Vadim's fighters who are holding the defense near Toretsk have to walk 10 to 15 kilometers to reach their positions. The occupiers don't even let them get as far as Kostiantinivka. And now, it's not artillery that's destroying the city, but fiber optic drones.
Well, actually, here is the fiber optic cable. Everything here is covered with it. Here, this little thread, so you can see it on me. The whole area here in Konstacha is covered with it, with these kinds of threads.
And this is a drone on fiber optic. This looks like a regular FPV drone.
It can carry about 3 to 4 kilograms over a distance of 10 kilometers. Without any radio frequencies, radio horizons, ground stations, wires, or anything like that.
Fiber optics are used to transmit high-quality video. Just set up the antenna and fly. The drone does not emit radio signals and is invisible to the enemy. Thanks to a stable connection, FPV drones can fly low and get in anywhere. Anywhere at all.
They are slower than regular ones. Why is it maybe harder to fly them? Because they are assigned more complex targets. That is, they need to slowly fly through some obstacle, get somewhere in order to hit the target precisely.
The drone itself carries a spool, a reel with fiber optic cable and explosives. It connects to a special station that provides secure communication. The wire is very thin, but it's almost impossible to break. It only scissors can cut it. During the flight, the fiber optic cable naturally lays itself on the ground and over trees. These drones can stay in the air for half an hour and fly distances of up to 25 to 30 kilometers.
In general, it's commonly believed that drones using fiber optics aren't very maneuverable. Maybe that's true, and yes, they're slower, but you can still maneuver them.
Drones like these were first tested back at the end of 2022, but at that time there were few electronic warfare systems at the front, so these developments didn't get much attention. Instead, the Russians remembered about them last year. They tested them in the Kharkiv region, scaled up production, and now they're actively disrupting our logistics and rear positions. Ukraine's defense forces only started using fiber optics a few months ago.
We're not at the starting line. Like everyone else is still developing, and we are already 2 steps ahead. Everyone points this out. Well, at first, when we were ahead, they couldn't catch up with us in some respects.
It's difficult to defend against such drones. Both the Russians and we started covering the main routes to the front with these kinds of net corridors. A drone can get tangled in them and there won't be a direct hit on the equipment. But it's not a cure-all, because a well-trained pilot will find the gap, fly onto the road and destroy whatever he needs to.
Fight back, they're coming up with electronic warfare systems. Let's say it's about optics. I think it's possible to come up with something and fight against optics too.
But we don't have much time. We need to come up with not only countermeasures, but also ramp up our own production of fiber optic drones. Otherwise, the gray zone between the lines of contact will expand to 50 kilometers. Incoming fire! Oleg Kornienko, Zakar Komak, Faktazi Television, United News.
China is entering Crimea, and this is no joke, an unexpected turn of events that no one was prepared for. Intelligence has leaked alarming information. The Kremlin has begun large-scale construction of a port and a railway. Moscow has set a trap and is trying to draw Putin into its own game. What does this mean for the peninsula, and what should the world prepare for? Details coming up in a moment.
The Chinese will build major infrastructure projects in temporarily occupied Crimea. This was stated by the occupation head,
Aksionov, the protagonist of the story, a man of great resilience and enduring spirit. If I may joke, Soviet power, aside from the ranks, is still about people, individuals, and their character. You can feel that loyalty to the motherland and resilience, incredible courage, are passed down from generation to generation.
Let me remind you, the official position of the PRC is respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, which includes Crimea. The PRC does not recognize the fact of its annexation.
According to experts, such statements may have several motives.
Currently, the territory temporarily occupied in Crimea is a weak point for the Russian occupiers. If they manage to ensure Moscow's security at the victory parade with the involvement of Xi Jinping, then why not use the same approach with Chinese companies?
They have preliminarily agreed on two sites. The first is the Kerch seaport, which Russia uses for grey exports. The second is the infrastructure of Lake Donuzlov, where the Russian naval base is located.
I believe that you will truly form the right opinion that doing business in Crimea is safe, comfortable, and profitable for Chinese entrepreneurs.
We believe that this is a freely implemented project. This will only benefit the population and businesses in Crimea. It will also effectively enhance the image of your republic.
It makes it clear that not only the People's Republic of China, but also other countries are ready to invest in Russian facilities, including military facilities. And Donuslav is exclusively a military base of the Russian army on the territory of temporarily occupied Crimea. In this way, they make it clear that the issue of Crimea is supposedly taken off the table in negotiations. In other words, it is not discussed a priori. This is an element of military, economic, and political informational pressure.
A $10 billion project is planned to be implemented by one of the largest Chinese companies specializing in the construction of railways and transport highways.
At present, there is no confirmation that Chinese companies will actually participate in major infrastructure projects, but it's a warning sign. There is significant concern. When we talk about infrastructure projects, it's clear that it's not just a matter of money, but also a specific geopolitical case.
Russia and China are partners in many sectors, and the Chinese are making a lot of money in Russia. But is it really that profitable for them to build under the constant threat of shelling and active hostilities? That question remains open.
Investment cooperation is actively developing about 90 priority Russian-Chinese projects with a substantial total worth of approximately 200 billion.
I am counting
on the support
of genuine and meaningful contacts with President Vladimir Putin in the most important and significant formats for the sake of dynamic, sustained, and long-term development of Chinese-Russian relations.
Without the involvement of Chinese companies, it is quite obvious that they are indeed entering the sovereign territory of Crimea. If they try, they will very quickly regret it. Therefore, I think that most likely China will try to obtain certain permission from Ukraine, guarantees of non-aggression against these projects. But it is clear that Ukraine, by definition, cannot provide such guarantees.
It is quite possible that this is just another Russian propaganda campaign to show that, in fact, the economically crushed, temporarily occupied Crimea is supposedly flourishing under Russian control.
That's not all on this topic. This was me, Darlina Hutsakalo. Even more hellish news from the front in our next episode. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon.